We're back to working on the 1971 C10 in Spanish gold. That's right, folks. That took a minute off, but here we go at it again. I got a lot of things set up. I want to discuss this week's happenings, next week's, future stuff, all the fun stuff. You might see I got the mufflers set up here. I'll show you those in a minute. We're going to start on prepping the paint for the top. Again, we're not repainting this truck. We never intended to. We're kind of leaving it all patina's the word, right? All what it picked up through the years, but the top was in bad enough shape. It needs repaint. It needs resealed on the drip rail. We've talked about it in the past, but we're going to get started on that again. Some work was done to this. When did I do that? 2 years ago on top. When I first got it, I was excited to get these rust things covered. But I'm going to show you some tricks on that, some things I do. May or may not be important to you, depending on how picky you want to be. Let me get you set up over here and I'll show you what's going on with the mufflers, and we'll jump over to the paint prep. Okay, I want to talk a minute about mufflers. There's so many kinds, there's so many variables, there's so many inlets and outlets, welded, non-welded, rolled, stainless steel, we talked about that. These in stainless steel or not, the amount of money you could spend. We could talk the entire time just on mufflers themselves, but I won't, I'll make it quick. I don't know what sound you're going for. We all have our own personal opinions. It's hard to describe decibel rating versus tone, but quickly I'll just go through the highlights. These are welded mufflers. They'll last quite a bit longer. We'll get several years, 10, 15 years of use out of these parking this truck indoors. So I didn't opt for the stainless steel on these. They are quite a bit more expensive than stainless. I don't see it necessary. These are heavy gauge. Maybe I'll regret it, maybe not. These are about 40 bucks, I think $44 a piece at the time of this video. I have talked about my system before. It's a 3-inch system, if that's right, 3-inch? No, I'm sorry, 2.5-inch system. But the rear half of the truck, from the cutouts, which will be basically just the headers and a small extension, those are all the full 2.5. These are, I believe, 2.25. Doggone it, now I forgot. Maybe they're 2-inch. I think they're 2-inch, and I did it for sound. I wanted to choke it down a little bit. I wanted to soften that tone a little bit, but I wanted to have an aggressive undertone without being loud. So the 2-inch does that. I sacrifice a little horsepower, but by a push of a button, I have open headers, so I get my horsepower back and my loudness if I want it. So with that ability to change with the cutouts, I opted for a much quieter daily driver, which is the intent for this truck. And you achieve that sound. By the way, weld mufflers are a touch louder than just a rolled edge muffler, so take that in mind. If you do an offset inlet, offset outlet, you'll also quiet the muffler, or the truck noise down a little more, because it has to travel through the muffler to get out. If you take a center inlet with a offset outlet, then the sound comes into the middle of the muffler and has a short distance to travel to get out. And then if you want it louder yet, you do a center inlet, a center outlet, and pretty much the exhaust goes straight through the muffler, and the absorbing sound does bounce off the muffler and the inside a little bit. So there's the reason I went with offset, and I went with a smaller pipe, is to get that sound a little quieter, that when it's idling or you're cruising, it's super quiet, but if you give it a little throttle, you can hear that it has some power behind it without giving away that it's kind of souped up a little. So there's my talk on mufflers. I'm not in the shape or mood to climb up and down this week. I'll get to this next week. It's just a lot of up and down for me right now. So we're going to skip working on this, but I wanted to show you what I picked up on that. So next I'm going to jump you over to sandpapers. We'll talk about that, and then we're going to jump to the truck and get some work done and show you some tricks. So cut to. Here I've set up my assortment of sanding blocks and sandpaper and what I like to use. Just a little bit of everything. I always, it's cheap. I always clean the denatured alcohol first. That gets rid of greases and oils that you don't know are there, and you just sand them into the paint, you grind them into the primer. So it's cheap to wipe it down with that. Keep a rag handy. You can always touch up if you get a finger pin or pick up some grease or something on your hands, because it is a shop. So I do that first. You might get away with not using it, but I don't chance it for the expense. But we have a roll of the sandpaper that sticks to the Durablock. You just peel them off, stick a new one on there. It also fits the smaller version as well for small spots of blocking. This is really level things out nice. Got a rubber block for this, all regular sandpaper. This is wet, dry sand. I might use that on occasion. Can use the back of it to get into a round spot. I like these blocks as well. They have a wedge on them. They're foam. They're wet, dry. They don't last long. They're kind of expensive, but they could be very handy at times. So you need a vast array. You're going to use this thing a lot and finger a lot, but try not to gouge with the fingers a lot. I said a lot, didn't I? Okay, that was it for sandpaper. I'm not going to bore you on that. We're going to hop over and show you some issues I have and how to deal with them. Things that you might have to deal with. So cut, I don't know, I'm up to what, 3 now? Yeah, whatever. Started on the truck. This tape is not a paint mask tape. It's more of a sand masking tape. Just in case I slide off my white line a little bit, I don't want to sand too much of this gold paint we're going to leave on there. We will blend in later, but I want to leave as much of that material on there as I can. Sandpaper isn't the best blocker, but it's something. We'll just try to stay near that edge without going on the paper too much. Now, I didn't zoom in because I don't have that kind of ability on my camera right now. But if you want to zoom in, you'll see there are these little, I don't know what you call them, suction cup things. When a vine grew up on this many, many moons ago, they attached with these little hand prints. There's like 5 of them, just like a little hand. And with those stick 2 things in order to grow the vine up on the wall, or in this case, a truck, whatever is in that bonding material, organic something or other, I can't get it off. I've used everything I can dream of, denatured alcohol, carbon cleaner, brake clean, gasoline, whatever you can think of, mineral spirits. Nothing even softens it. So it has to be sanded. The problem with sanding those bumps off is in the beginning you can hit just the bumps. They're very hard. I actually would say they're harder than the paint. So the problem runs into when you start getting them really close to the paint, it's hard to sand just those little things. So you will kind of get a little bit away from your paint. Now, I mean, you really got to look for it, but it's there. If you keep sanding, you can get those bumps out, but then your paint gets pretty thin. So keep that in mind if you have something like this. You just can't seem to get through. Just going to be a problem for me. I won't make you suffer through watching any of that. Okay, a little bit. Excuse me. I say a little bit. We're just going to do it for a second. If I use my fingers on sandpaper, doubling it up sometimes gives you a little more rigidity, if that's even a word. If you use just your fingers and you start sanding on this, you're going to see in a few strokes, I've already got white paint on there. And you can see the brownness, if that's English. Here I go my great English again. So I am getting the organic material off of it, but I'm taking paint with it. So finger is too soft on this particular job. You're going to have to get a small block. They make mini little tiny blocks. I use pieces of wood. You can round them and shape them the way you want and wrap the sandpaper around it. Then you can get more of a blocking action, touching just the organic material I'm trying to remove, the item, versus my finger contouring around it. So that's as much as I'm going to bore you on that. The next up we have, and I will move you over for this because I want you to see this if it matters to you. So cut. I believe that's as close as I can get you and still be in focus. So if you can see what I'm showing you, right along this edge of the black rubber here that molds is the molding for the glass. Somebody has oversprayed on that quite a bit actually. And that white is always going to be there. And then when I repaint the truck, my bright white is not going to match that white. It's going to make that overspray stand out even more than it already does. May not bother you. A lot of people don't care. It's repainted. It's an old truck. But here's a trick if you do care. You take you one of these really thin scrapers and slide it under that rubber. And you're going to break the paint because the paint's bridged across that rubber. So once you get in there without ruining the rubber, you can slide that right along the edges of paint and cut that line. Just stay under the rubber a little bit. You ain't got to go deep. Now when you get this in there, you've got a protector for your base paint. And you can take a screwdriver or a razor blade, whatever you're comfortable with, and just kind of scrape along here, and you're not going to scratch the truck because of the protection of this. Now you say, wow, this takes time. This is boring. I don't want to do this. Well, you don't have to. If you don't want to do it in your truck, feel free. Skip it. Who's gonna know? Who's gonna care? It's yours. I'm not gonna spend a great deal of, yep, I dropped that. It's gonna happen. I'm not gonna spend a great deal of time on that. Yeah, that went someplace I can't find it. I mean, my floor is clean and clear and I still can't find it. So I'll save you the misery of that. I'll find it later. Yep, I said it already later. Anyhow, I'll scrape on that, I'll wipe with a cloth, and I'll get that 99% off of there. I'm gonna start on the top where I have lots of patience. And this is where you're gonna see it. You'll walk up. Right now you're at like head level, and you're gonna see this. Now underneath the track at the bottom or something, and I get tired of doing it, nobody's gonna see it, nobody's gonna care. Most of all, I don't care. I might stop this process. But it definitely gives you a crisper edge when you take it out. You can notice already, and I don't even have it cleaned off. So there's a little trick I use for cleaning up around the overspray on the rubber. The other important part, I'll zoom you back by walking. The other important part I find in doing this kind of work, and I'll go back to the other side as well, is, yeah, let's take you there. Let's do that right now. Now I'm jiggling you around anyway. On our way over, I'll discuss another little issue. Yep, I jump around a lot. We've got this taped off yet again. That's part of working on these trucks. This is the wheel well. I've got the box setting up right if you can't recognize it. And what we have is a lot of wear in the paint right through here. It's even getting the surface rust on the inside. We had to do a couple of spot welds here on the box itself to get this crack that goes, I'm not going to get rid of. But we've now secured this. We've got it tied in. But we've got a lot of wear in this paint. And I'm not sure it was painted the last time, because this truck's been painted once sometime during the 70s or 80s. So what are we going to do here to blend our paint? Well, that's a lot of blending to make something look good. A ton of work. So what I'm going to do instead is I get a color match paint from just a hardware store. Some type of enamel that has a hardener in it. And I'm going to come in here with a paintbrush and I'm going to hand paint this and make sure all these nooks and crannies get some coating of paint on them. After that coat dries, I'm going to take a soft roller. Yeah, some people are going to laugh and say, yeah, you're going to roller paint your truck. You're never going to see it. I don't believe anybody will ever notice it. And if they do, it's what I decide to do. But when you roller this with that heavier paint, it'll give it that little bit of an undercoating or bed liner look to it. It'll cover a lot of these inside scratches, and most of all, it's going to protect this from stone chips. So that's all I've taped this off for. Get a coating on there. I might bring you back and give you a quick look before I peel it off. I got a little scrape here from something. I'll go ahead and cover that. That's starting to creep out. And then I don't know if you can see that though, but as we go down the bottom, yeah, I'll tip you down there. As we go down the, I don't know what you call it, box side. In this area here, you'll notice, I went the wrong way. This is towards the truck. We have a little fading of paint here, as well as, I won't move you, on the back part behind the tire where the rocks hit. So I might do like a rock guard, what is generally referred to around here. You take that bed liner, color match, and you just tape yourself off a line down here, covering up as much garbage as you can without going too high. Your preference again, and then you spray this rock guard on there. So when somebody sees the truck and they realize it has all the old scrapes and little dings and imperfections and things that make it cool, they can also see down here that you did something, but it was just to protect the truck and make it last longer rather than trying to rejuvenate or restore this vehicle. I think it's a good look. I've tried it before. Blends in nicely. It looks appropriate. So we were on our way over to some more paint prep on the cab. So bear with me. I'll walk around here. Now here on the cab we have something that I find is pretty common. I've noticed it a few times on a few different trucks. You can see it quite well without detail. But what we have, grab a piece of sandpaper while I'm on my way. A couple, 2, 3, just to see what I like. I got 2 pieces 800, so that's not gonna work. But what you have is somewhere along the way, the box got loose, either a bolt broke or somebody took it off and moved it, whatever, it doesn't matter. And the box has bumped and rubbed the paint on the cab. Pretty common on these. Probably mainly because of how old they are. So I want to do the same thing here. Now this is a little sponge you generally use for wet sanding, but you get the idea. You get in here with something that's going to soften the gouging of your paint, of your sandpaper. I also have some kind of little, looks like a pipe or something hidden here. That's going to have to be dealt with. You might ask why I'm spending so much time now. I haven't put any prep on, I haven't done anything. Well, I want to get as many of these imperfections out of this paint and out of this cab before I start trying to fill anything or touch anything up, because you just tend to build out, and it gets wavier and wavier. So I'm going to spend a pretty good amount of time on this. What happened was this was rusted, and then the rusty metal I covered with a converter. So I have to sand through my rust converter as well as the rust. But again, staying away from that tape line as much as I can. It's just going to take a bunch of time. And it looks like something rubbed here. Maybe they had a capper on it once upon a time, and that capper just kind of rubbed the paint. So that itself has to be dealt with and smoothed out as much as possible. If you start sanding in the metal, it's time to quit, because that'll give you some more waviness, because the metal doesn't sand anymore, or very difficult. Yet the paint around it will continue to sand, and that'll give you what looks like a high spot. So if you get the metal, time to back off. That's enough until you get the primer sealer on there. So a lot of cleanup to do. This is tedious work. Not going to bore you with it, but I thought I'd show you what's going on this week. I'm back at it, and we're going to keep at it. Boy, been here so long, I probably got to clean all this up again. Well, that's everything for this week. I know it was a short video, but I wanted to bring you guys out and show you what's going on with the truck and say hi. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Gotta go. There's something else I always do at the end of these. What was it? Oh, I gotta count how many times I turn it off. So there it is. We're gonna turn it off this week. It's gonna be great. I'm going with one. Just gonna push the button and it's gonna turn on. See you next week. Here we go. 1, 2.